Hello, besties, and welcome back to another episode of Bon Voyage Besties with your hosts, Rosa and Rachel. If you've been dreaming about wandering through charming Italian villages, eating your weight in pasta, or planning your next unforgettable escape, you're in the right place. Our podcast is all about inspiring you to book your next adventure, whether it's a weekend getaway close to home or a trip to one of our favorite places in the world. You guessed it, Italy. And today we're heading straight to the heart of the Mediterranean, Sicily. From vibrant markets and seaside towns to ancient history, incredible food, and hidden gems beyond the typical tourist trail. Sicily is truly a destination that deserves a spot on everyone's bucket list. I know I am super excited for this episode. I personally have not been to this area of Italy, so we're excited to welcome Sarah, the founder and director of Adventures with Sarah, a boutique tour company specializing in authentic Italian travel experiences. Sarah spent the last 26 years as a tour guide and travel journalist, including years working with Rick Steves, and since 2018 has been creating unforgettable independent tours throughout Italy and Sicily. She's here to share her expert insights on planning the perfect Sicilian adventure, navigating Italian culture like a pro, and of course, her legendary packing tips that have helped travelers enjoy Italy stress-free. So grab your espresso besties, get comfy, and let's dive into all things Sicily, Italian travel, and adventure with Sarah. So welcome to the show.
Welcome to Bon Voyage Bestie, Sarah. We're so happy to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm happy to talk about Sicily and Italy anytime.
I know. I love Italy. I traveled there for the very first time. I went with my travel buddy, Alex, and I think this was probably in 2016 or 2017. And we did like Rome, Positano. We primarily stood a little bit more on the Amalfi Coast. And I immediately fell in love with Italy. And I've had the pleasure of going a few times. I was just there this past April, exploring other regions. And I feel like Italy is one of those places that anywhere you go, it's completely different. The food is different throughout the whole entire country. So I am particularly super interested to hear all about your tips and recommendations for exploring Sicily because it's one place that I personally have not been to and it's very, very high on my bucket list.
Well, one thing to note about Sicily and Italy in general, you are right. Every place you go in Italy has a completely different cuisine, a different culture, and that actually makes sense when you think about the history of it. The country of Italy is a new country. It's only since our Civil War, 1860s, that Italy became a country. Prior to that, it was tons and tons of little countries that were just kind of next door neighbors. And eventually, once it was melded into one country and they kind of insisted everybody speak Florentine as the main language, that the country was born. But even today, if you ask a Sicilian if they're Italian, they'll say, I'm Sicilian.
That's very true.
Yeah.
I know a few Sicilians and they always say I'm Sicilian. They never say I'm Italian.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't want you to make that mistake because, I mean, they are not only unique because they're an isolated island, but their language actually is considered a language, not a dialect of Italian. They're different
Cool.
they're different in so many ways. And they're one of the only regions of Italy to have an autonomous government. So they have their own parliament just for the island. And they're basically almost ruled just by the people of Sicily. They do, of course, have attachment to the Italian government, but they are semi-autonomous politically as well as culturally. So it really is not exactly Italy. Most people say, oh, where should I go in Italy? And I don't think to recommend Sicily because I don't even think of it in my head as Italy in a way.
That's amazing. I've heard such great things about Sicily. I know Rosa and I were based in New Jersey, and Newark Airport started direct flights to Sicily quite recently, making it more accessible. I'm also a huge fan of the White Lotus, so after watching that, of course, I want to go to Sicily even more. But before we started the podcast, you said something really interesting about giving up your career for Italy, which I just absolutely love and admire. I think that is amazing. And since this episode is focusing on Sicily in particular, what exactly about Sicily made you fall in love with it so much?
Well, actually, Sicily was not my first love. I went to Italy in 1994 as a backpacker, and I came back as an architecture student the next year, and I lived in Rome. And that was my original love, was Rome. I lived there, and I just couldn't get enough of it. So after being an architect for a number of years, about 6 or 7 years, I just kind of decided I would rather just do this. And so my mother-in-law asked me one day, if you could do anything, what would you do? Because I was frustrated with my job. And I said, oh, I don't know, go work for Rick Steves and write guidebooks about Italy. And she said, well,
That's a good
that's a true
aspiration.
story.
I love that. And I'm a huge fan of Rick Steves too.
I mean, this is 26 years ago. So I was a very, let's say, not female friendly profession being an architect, and I was frustrated. So I thought, "Oh, why not?" So I wrote a resume and I decorated and drew all over it. I made kind of an outrageous resume. And I got home from work, and my husband at the time, he said, "Oh, hey, Rick Steves called you." And I said, "Ha ha, you're funny." And he said, "No, really, he did actually
Oh
call
my
you."
gosh.
Yeah.
My
So
God.
well, so anyway, so I changed my whole profession at that point. I kind of went in just temporarily to see if I would like it, and I didn't love working in the office because that's what I was trying to escape, was working in an office. But once I went on a tour and I saw that a tour guide was a job, which I guess I just had never thought about that was a job. And travel journalism, I never thought that. I'm an architect, like that's not my background, so I didn't really think that was a thing. And in fact, kind of one stop shopping, I got to learn all of those disciplines from Rick Steves, which was really a neat opportunity, particularly to learn directly from.
That's
That's
such a
really
big shift going
cool.
from being an architect to now traveling to Italy and working with Rick Steves. That had to be a pretty cool adventure. So, what would you say as far as that's concerned? I'm a little bit curious too. Like, how was that a bit of a shift in your mindset going from that type of career into travel journalism?
Have to say it was a little bit hard on me in the sense that I think if you get an architecture degree, you think of, I mean, I read The Fountainhead when I was a student, like it's being an architect's important with a capital I. And it's so exciting. And it's such a, you think things up and then they get built and you see the product in front of you. And it's such an intellectual puzzle. And I always love the challenge of it. The shift to doing tourism, to working as a tour guide and also working as a writer was just, I mean, night and day in the sense that, I mean, I loved it. And it is kind of similar in that you're a perpetual student. I learn every day, especially as a writer. I learn every day. I learn from everybody around me. I'm like a sponge. And I love that because I'm the kind of nerdy person that would have stayed in college the rest of my life if I had had that choice. So for me, it was my way to continually learn. So from that aspect, I loved it. The parts that I felt weird about was I felt a little guilty, to be honest, because I'm the first person in my family to graduate from university. And I had this big career. I was always the kid that was going to be the first female president, you know? And so going into something that was fun, that I enjoyed, felt really strange because I thought, well, I should be doing important things, you know? And I really had a bit of a crisis a few years into my career. And I was talking about it with my boss at the time. And he said something interesting, which is, yeah, this may not feel as important as building a building, but on the other hand, you're changing people's lives day by day. And you really are. And whether that's the advice you're writing, or I've had people on my tours that they saved their entire lives to go on one tour to Italy. That's their only shot. And it's been their lifelong dream. And that really kind of shook me a little bit when I went, you know, I can actually think of a long list of names of people that only got one shot to go to Italy and they went with me and I made it the best memory. And that's the thing they're going to remember on the last day of their life. They're going to think of all the great things that happened. And that's going to be one of them. And in a way, that's a much bigger responsibility than designing a building, you know,
And
because you're
that's
designing
very
people's
true.
Yeah.
memories.
That's so
Exactly. That's very true
beautiful.
because I know for myself as a traveler, I work hard for my money. So when I go to a new destination, I want to be able to have a great time. And when I connect, whether it's like a tour guide or any activity that I'm doing, it is going to leave a lasting impression. So it's such an honor that you're able to kind of create these memories for these travelers. So that's amazing.
That's really cool. Just like what you said, just it's like their one shot going to Italy. It was really touching to think about. And I know, like, as someone who's been on countless tours around Europe, I have tour guides I still think about to this day. Like my tour guide for my first solo trip around Scotland, I still like can see him in my mind, even though it was like, gosh, 2013, so long ago. And you really are changing lives by doing that. And before I ever traveled and thought I would never travel solo, I used to actually watch Rick Steves videos on YouTube, and that would inspire me to go. So it does like change lives. It really, really does.
It doesn't, you know, and there's other little ways it inspires people. I used to work a lot with kids on family tours, and I had one teenager that I just kind of really bonded with who changed her degree to architecture, and she's a practicing architect now. I've also had
You guys
people
pass
that
on the torch.
yeah, exactly. And I've also had people that I disagreed with, like politically, and you know, you travel with them and you show them things that they've never seen, and you introduce them to people that maybe they wouldn't have ever spoken to, and people leave enriched and their minds are more open. And I think that travel really is something that can change people's hearts and minds, you know. And I think that's really important work as it turns out, especially in these days. I mean, I think it's the one lesson I take away from my 26 years of being a guide and a writer is we're all the same, and I don't think people understand that as much as they should. So it's really another mission of my company, really, to connect people, particularly to cultures that maybe that make them a little uncomfortable or challenge their notions. I think it's a really good thing when people can come with me, they feel safe with me, and then they're able to do things they never thought they could do. I mean, even if that's just you've never left your hometown and you've been dreaming of Sicily, you know, and that's something you never thought you could do. So I think it's really neat to empower people that way.
Definitely agree that travel can be transformative to an extent as well because, like you said, it pushes people outside of their comfort zone. I know when I travel, I like to say I'm a better version of myself because I'm a little bit more relaxed. I'm not like stressed out. I work a corporate job, so I feel like I'm always like on the go back home. But when I travel, I'm more like carefree, more fun because I'm not thinking about all the 1,001 things that I need to get done off my checklist. So I feel like I'm much more relaxed and it allows me to be able to connect with more people. Even when I'm traveling with like my friends and family, it allows me to be a little bit more present than I typically am back home.
My kids always call me Italian mama once they're with me in Italy, and they
That is
love
so
Italian
cute.
mama because Italian mama is happy and relaxed.
That sounds like
So
my husband. We like
cute.
to call him Vacation Mike because he becomes like a social butterfly. He's like talking to people, and then we'll come back home and he tells me stories. I'm like, who are you talking about? He's like, yeah, remember the couple that we met in Egypt in the tour? Like now they're having a baby. And I'm like, how are you still friends with them? This was like 4 years ago. So it's like a completely different person. So I definitely agree. Sometimes you need to kind of get out of your day to day routine in order to be a little bit more relaxed. And it kind of sucks too to have that mentality because you would think like life is short, right? You want to be able to kind of enjoy it as best as possible. But at least for myself, travel is a way to decompress. So, like I said earlier in the episode, Sicily has been one of those places that are high up in my bucket list. So, for someone visiting for the first time, what are the absolute must see places and which hidden gems do tourists often overlook?
So I think the most important things you want to hit are the highlights. And for me, the highlights obviously are Palermo, which is like the kind of main capital city, because it's really got a lot of very interesting history to it. The Valley of the Temples in Agrigento is you cannot miss. These are the best Greek temples that we have historically well preserved. They're more well preserved than the Acropolis, for example. So they're really interesting. And I think that Ortigia in Syracuse is very interesting. Syracuse, if you're a history nerd, is going to ring some bells because that was a really important part of the Peloponnesian War, the plot of that story. But it's also just a really beautiful Baroque city. That whole southwest corner was destroyed by an earthquake in the 17th century, and so it's all been kind of rebuilt in this really beautiful Baroque style. And then I think that everybody's favorite finale is Taormina, which you, of course, if you watch The White Lotus, you know what I'm talking about. And that's not just been a holiday kind of beautiful place to be in these days. It was that way even in the time of Oscar Wilde. So it's been a place for expats. It's been a place for vacationers. It's just a beautiful spot. And you get to watch Mount Etna burp up smoke all the time, which is really a lot of fun. So yeah, those are kind of my four highlights. If you could only pick four things to do, I would say Palermo, Agrigento, and the Valley of the Temples, Syracuse, and then also Taormina, of course.
That sounds like the perfect itinerary. You mentioned Oscar Wilde, and I'm sold. I'm an English teacher, and he was like one of my favorite writers from when I was younger. So I'm like, I would book a plane ticket just for that. So, Sicily, it's actually like a pretty big area, and there can be like distances between the cities and towns. So, how long do you recommend allocating for, say, a first trip to Sicily?
Well, that's an interesting question because a lot of people, when I do travel consultations as well, and a lot of people will say, hey, I've got 4 days and I want to do all of Sicily. And I'm like, yeah, so here's the problem. Sicily is the largest island in the Mediterranean. The one time that I drove fast, I drove from Catania on one side to all the way to Trapani on the other. Driving really fast, it took me about 2 to 2.5 hours. As fast as, I mean, driving Sicilian fast. I did that. So if that gives you
I wonder if that's equivalent to New York City
Yeah,
fast.
I was thinking that like turnpike fast, although I'm sure like the roads are a little bit different too. I don't know how good of a driver I would be in Sicily.
Yeah, so
Get
this
you a
is the problem.
Ferrari.
Sicily is very, very big and it's deceptive because people think, oh, it's a little island. You know, it's the one that the Buddha of Italy is kicking. It can't be that big, but it's actually really, really big. So you have to kind of temper your expectations. Also, getting there takes time because you have to fly usually from Rome, or maybe you'll get a direct flight, but most people are coming by either train or by plane from Rome. So just getting there's a little bit of a project, and getting away is a little bit that way too. So I think that a minimum would be probably 5 or 6 days. I would say optimally, you would do at least 8 to 10 days, depending on what you want to do. So the tour that we run, that's the highlights tour, is 8 days. And that's kind of scratching the surface, honestly, because we do subsequent tours that do a lot more. I think if you were to try to get those highlights that I spoke about, those 4 places, and then a few other things, I would say 10 days would probably be a really good start. You could spend a lifetime, though. That's kind of the problem. I've spent, 15 years or so, more than that, coming and going from Sicily, and I still haven't seen it all.
My gosh, that it sounds incredible. 15 years going back and forth. But what you said is so true. Like, I'm always asked by people because I do a lot of solo travel over to Europe, and I've been to Italy. I think this is going to be my fourth or fifth time going. And I'll have people ask me, like, haven't you like been there already? Don't you want to go to a new country or check off some new destinations? Haven't you seen it already? And it's like, not really, because there's just so much to see and do. Another example would be Paris. I've been there 3 or 4 times and I still haven't scratched the surface on everything that I want to do. And that's just one city, whereas Sicily is this huge island. So it definitely makes sense that 10 days would be a good starting point. But if you want to see more, you have to stay for even longer, which for me wouldn't be a problem. I would take my whole summer vacation going there, even though I'd be hot. I'd rather be hot there than New Jersey. So, yeah, sign me up for all of July. I'll find the money somehow.
I think the other reason that you can't do such a short stint there is that Sicily is a vibe. It's really its own thing. It's not exactly like Italy. And I think that once you kind of get used to the pace of life there, you realize things do not move very fast. It's island time, right? So you can't really be a task oriented traveler while you're there. So the things that we do in 8 days on our tour will probably take you as an individual traveler 10 days to do, because we have certain efficiencies and all of this. So you have to kind of think about that everything happens in its own good time. Getting your rental car is not going to be walking up, and I just walk out in the United States. I don't even check in at the desk. I just go and I pick my car and I drive away because Hertz lets you do that. Oh no, that's not what's going to happen in Sicily. You're going to talk to probably 3 different people, and then some guy's cousin, and then they're going to have the cousin come over and talk to you again. And it's kind of a whole thing. And everything is like this in Sicily, where things just take longer. Everybody's opinion needs to be heard, and you have to just kind of put the brakes on being in such a hurry. I think that's the key to enjoying it.
And that's a good point. And like, no shade to us Americans, but I feel like we're always like expecting like a quick return. We go somewhere, like you said, you go to your car rental, you don't have to speak to anyone at the counter, you just pick up your car. But when you visit certain countries, especially I feel like within Europe, it's definitely a slower pace and it gets them accustomed to doing. But I know for myself, when I'm traveling there, I, like you said before, I'm much more relaxed. And after like my first day there, like I'm like, oh yeah, 3 hours to have lunch. It's typical Italian, right? Not like back in the States, you go somewhere to eat and like 90 minutes, like you're in and out. So definitely it is a mindset to get accustomed to. So I think that's a good point that for people traveling there, especially for the first time, they need to realize that things tend to move a little bit slower pace.
Yep. Think of it as island time.
Yeah, adjust your expectations, adjust your expectations. Yeah, especially with the meals, because other parts of Italy I've gone to, and I'm so bad at this. Whenever it comes time to get the check in Italy, and it was the same in like Greece too, I would just kind of awkwardly smile, and it took a while for me to be comfortable like asking for it, because it's not like the States too, where they'll let you like sit there all night, especially in Italy. And the last time I went was like in the north, and they let us sit there for like ever. So I can imagine Sicily, it's even like more so.
And it is because of the role that food plays in Italy, but in Sicily in particular. I mean, I think it's even more extreme that food is love. Food is community. Food is the thing you came for. And it's the way to share fellowship with other people. It's the way to unwind. And it really is. I mean, food is love. So I think that they won't bring you the check because they're just letting you enjoy the experience. They're letting you take your time. And that's just a challenge for Americans. And that's one of the challenges of being a guide is I actually feel like I have to deprogram people a little bit and say, today we're having a 3-hour dinner. And I know if I tell you that in words, you're going to say, what? But once you actually see how we just take our time, we're going to meet the owner, they're going to bring out the first antipasto, then they're going to bring out the primo, and maybe we're going to get to talk to the nonna who made it. It's like theater almost. You have to kind of think of it's dinner and a show, whether you like it or not.
It's
So
a whole experience.
it is. It's an experience. And so, if you are getting impatient, you just ask for the check, which is il conto per favore. And, you can even say that. You just get up and use the restroom and just kind of mention it. Just say conto, and that's fine. Like the count. That's the way to remember it. The count,
The
please.
Count. I
Yeah, the
think
count.
Count Dracula.
Yeah, I know. Think about it. But now you have it in your head. So when you're in Italy, you think of Dracula and you're like, the count, I have to ask for the count. So that's how you get your bill. But you can also do the kind of worldwide sign of making eye contact and scribble on your hand, like make
And
a
over I
gesture.
go. Mhm.
Yeah, everybody gets that. But il conto, and you can just kind of like, as they're walking by, just sort of say conto, just real quick, and then people will bring you your bill. And they understand, but I think it is nice to just sort of be Sicilian. And the thing that a lot of restaurants, it's a surprise for Americans, is you finish up your main course and maybe you've had your dessert, and then you ask for your check, and the person who at the restaurant who owns it might be confused because they're like, well, but didn't you want the liqueur? Because I'm going to bring out the digestivo. And like they kind of assume you're just hanging around for the digestivo. So that is my advice is if you can just kind of set your American self aside and just go with it. Often fun things will happen. They're going to bring out the digestivo. If you're not in a hurry and you haven't asked for the check, maybe they're going to come and sit with you and chat with you. Who knows? I've ended up in wine cellars, like this underground of the restaurant before until 3 o'clock in the morning, chatting with the owners and drinking whatever was open. So that stuff happens. And that's kind of the serendipity you have to open yourself up to and set aside your Americanness that's like, check, please. So, yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
forces you to slow down, but in a good way.
Especially us from the Northeast, I feel like we need that because it's even more fast paced than even other parts of the country. And it is true. I always have to like readjust because it's sometimes fun to have those long leisurely meals. And you're right. When you spend time to hang around, you get into these conversations. A similar thing happened to us in Crete. We went for lunch at a place we were not supposed to even be at. We were supposed to go to another beach, but there was an accident. We couldn't make it. And this like family owned place. It was amazing. We got to talk to the family. We got to play with the cats. We got to hang out on their beach. We got to enjoy some white wine afterwards. And it was a whole experience. And it was really, really a lovely thing to see. So I want to go to Sicily for more of that. But you talked about some of the main highlights and the must sees of Sicily. So for someone who has a bit more time, what should travelers add to their itinerary if they have the additional time to dive a little bit deeper?
So I think the west coast of Sicily is quite interesting, and it's definitely not as popular to visit. So that's like Marsala, Trapani, Mazzara del Vallo. That whole area is quite interesting because it's sort of the rainy part of Sicily, and it's also the place where they have a lot of the Marsala wines. They have a lot of olive trees. So as far as food goes, that's an interesting region, and it's a completely different character because it's much more rural. It's much more kind of small town, whereas the east coast is sort of the arid tropical side of the island. That's the side most people focus on. Most people, when they go, they might even skip Palermo. Like a lot of people will go to fly in and out of Catania and just focus on that eastern side because that's where all kind of the big, glitzy sites are. That's where Mount Etna is. That's where Ortigia and Taormina, all this stuff. So I think the west coast is kind of underappreciated, and it's actually very, very pretty. Erice is a really interesting kind of fairy village on top of an extreme looking mountain. Trapani down below is a fisherman's village, and I love the islands off of that coast there, the Egadi Islands. Favignana, for example, is not as popular as the Aeolian Islands, which a lot of people know about the Aeolian Islands, which are on the east coast. And of course, they're very flamboyant because Stromboli erupts every half hour, for example. But very few people, I think, make a point of going to the islands on the opposite side, which is quite interesting because it's where a lot of Italians go to vacation. So when you're riding your bicycle around Favignana, you're more likely to see Italians. Although since I wrote the Rick Steves book, I think you'll see Rick Steves readers there now. But in the past, there were never, ever any Americans there, which is really kind of fun. And one of the most Italian things you can do that I don't call it off the beaten path, but it's a very Italian thing to do if you're there in, let's say, June through September, you can do a boat trip, like a local boat trip, not like a fancy one, but one that local people people take, local Italian tourists will take, where they'll do from Marsala a day trip that hits all of those little islands. You have Favignana, Marittima, Levanzo. All of these are close together. You take this little boat ride out there, and they serve you lunch on the boat. They make pasta. As soon as they take off, they have to hand everybody a shot of espresso, of course. And then you go out and you cruise around. You get to see all of the islands. They let you jump off the boat and swim. They stop on a couple of different islands to kind of explore, and they make you pasta on the boat while you're exploring. And then you swim a little bit more, and then they bring you back. And it's so fun because it's such a real Italian thing to do. They offer these also in the Aeolian Islands. So if it's the summertime you're going, you definitely want to do something like that, do some of the islands, because that is a little bit less well trodden these days by tourists going out to the islands.
That sounds so fun. I'm like, sign me up.
I want
Especially like the
pasta
pasta
on
while
the
I'm
boat.
swimming.
I
Like,
know.
yeah.
I want pasta on the boat. That sounds just like absolutely amazing. Rosa, we have to go and just
I
like
know.
have espresso, pasta on the boat, enjoy some islands.
Definitely. I have to say, I went to a press trip to Italy and I was there for about 9 days. And I was working with two different tour companies and they were lovely. And like you said, you get to meet, like when we were at the restaurant, we met some of the local chef and it was amazing. But it's funny because, like, for myself back home, I don't do the whole aperitivo and, like, the foods and like all of that, like big portion, not big portions, but like the setting and everything like that. And after like my second day, I was like, what time is aperitivo time? I need my wine. I need my snacks. And I'm like, I'm not this type of person back home. I usually just eat like my one meal and that's it. But after 2 days in Italy, I definitely felt like I was part Italian.
Well, Rosa, you need to come over to Seattle because we have aperitivo every night. Sometimes we do apericena, which is just like aperitivo rinforzato with all the different little things, and you just eat that for dinner. So we have that every night. In fact, my aperitivo is already, my Negroni is already being made right now. I can hear it in the kitchen.
Oh my
Love
God. See, I
that.
feel like I'm doing life wrong in New Jersey.
I know. Maybe we should just like stay in Italy long term. Because I remember when you came back from that press trip, you were mentioning that you were just like, I miss my good food. I miss my aperitivo. But it's
Yeah.
so true. When you come back, it's hard to get readjusted. And I know the first time that my family went to Italy, like New Jersey, we have really good Italian American food, which is, of course, is like a little bit different. But when we got back here, my dad was like, I love the food here, but it's not the same as the food in Italy. We were just like pining for the food. So, since we're on the subject and since food is such a huge part of visiting Sicily, what dishes or local specialties should every traveler try at least once? And we're both going to be taking notes because Rosa and I love food.
Well, like I said, food is love in Sicily, and you better enjoy it and eat all of it because it's definitely a big part of the culture. I would say one of the most popular things is to have seafood there, and they have so many different kinds of seafood. And I have to tell you, I didn't used to like seafood at all. I went out to a restaurant once when I first started going there, and it was a restaurant where it was really kind of a special night out with a friend of mine, and we ended up eating at this really fancy restaurant. They wanted to kind of, impress us, and they brought out 10 courses of fish. And I was so embarrassed because I'm like, I don't like fish. I don't love fish. What am I doing here? But, I opened myself up to that. And actually, I think I pretty much like everything that I've ever had. So if you don't love fish, you still should try it in Sicily because it's completely different. The way they cook it is really good, super fresh. Down in Shaka, especially, they bring in all of the fresh fish. So, and you're going to see things you've never seen before. So that's kind of fun, is to just try the fish. I would say that's one of their great specialties. In May, for example, this season right now is the tuna season, where they have, if you go through the big markets in Catania or in Palermo, you're going to see these huge tuna chunks out there and they can just cut it off raw, and you can just have basically tuna sushi. It's really, really good. Even if you don't love fish, you got to try it. The other things that you don't want to miss is you don't want to miss the street food scene. Street food in Sicily is great because you have to remember Sicily in the 19th century kind of on was one of the more poor areas of Italy. And so it's kind of cucina povera and worker food, right? Meatballs, for example, did you know that they were invented in Sicily because all of the little droppings of meat from the meat market and the fish market would be on the ground. And so people that didn't have any money would come and take all the little pieces and they would make something out of it. And so when you go to Sicily, you're going to be very surprised because you'll bite into your meatball with tomato sauce on top, which, by the way, is a main dish. It's not served with pasta. But when you bite into it, there's a chunk of fish on the inside. And that's
Interesting.
Sounds
shocking.
good. That sounds
It's very
good.
surprising. It's very surprising, but it's a little bit of a nod to the origin story of meatballs. It's that it would have been the fish market and the meat market. They just mixed up all of the extra parts and pieces. So that's one thing to look for. But I think my favorite things to eat there, if you want to talk pastas, I really, really like the real traditional Sicilian pastas like pasta alla norma, which has eggplant. You're going to eat more eggplant than you've ever thought to eat in your life if you're in Sicily. Everything has eggplant in it. And this wonderful ricotta salata, which is sort of a cooked, baked ricotta that's sort of crumbly. It's not like the kind of ricotta you get in the grocery store here. So that's a lovely one. I could keep going on, but I would say as far as street food goes, two things to know. Number one, there's the arancini, which are the rice balls. They're very, very good. You've heard of them, I think, yeah?
Yeah, those are
Yes,
delicious.
they're
Dangerous because I can
amazing.
eat a lot of them.
I could eat a whole box of those. They're so good.
They're so good. And so they have them with all different flavors. The typical one is rice with like a meat ragu and peas that is breaded and deep fried. But now they have lots of modern varieties. They have ones that have brie and ham in them, or I've had one with walnuts. So there's a lot of creative like spins on the original thing. But the thing you have to know is what you call it. Is it arancina or arancino? And you have to be real careful about your language because they get offended, Catania versus Palermo. So they have a different way of referring to it. And
Ooh,
also
little rivalry.
the shape is quite different too, because if you are in Palermo, they're round like a ball. But if you are in Catania, they are conical like Mount Etna. So there's a little bit of a rivalry about who has the best arancini. So if you just want to like be careful, just refer to them as arancini in the plural, and you're not exactly wrong. You'll be right on both sides of the island, but you're talking about multiple ones. And so that's really one of my favorites is the rice balls. And the other thing I really love, but is very specific to Catania, is called cipollina, which I absolutely love. It's basically like a croissant dough, and on the inside of it is ham, cheese, tomato sauce, and I don't know, and onion, of course, because it's cipollini, which is onion. I don't know what kind of juju they do over that, because if I tried to make ham, cheese, tomato sauce, and onion croissants in my own home, they would be not that great. But these are so heavenly. And I think they're one of the great misses for most people who write about food in Italy, because I think it's the most delicious street food item that you can have in all of Italy.
I'm
That all
hungry.
sounds delicious. I feel like we need to do a research trip, Rachel, and see who has the best arancini.
Yes, let's do it. And I love the little rivalry too. I was thinking in my head, oh my gosh, it reminds me of North Jersey and South Jersey with what they call like Taylor ham versus pork roll, but we won't go there.
Yeah, we won't have that battle because I think you and I are on opposite sides.
But I still love you and you still love me. So it's all good.
It sounds like for a trip to Sicily, I need to pack like my stretchy pants. It's funny because like on this press trip, me and one of the other journalists, we were joking around because we bought like these all cute little outfits. And I was like, there's no way I'm fitting into any of this with the amount of food that I was eating because everything was so good. I like devoured every single meal that we had on this trip. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be wearing all of my stretchy clothes for the rest of the trip because these tight things are not going to make it.
Yep. It's important to bring stretchy clothes, that's for sure, because you're going to eat your weight in pasta and fish. And the most, let's see, stretchy pants inducing food that you can possibly have there are the sweets, because this is something very different from the rest of Italy. This is what divides Sicilian cuisine from Italian cuisine, because Sicily was inhabited by the Moors, or by the Arabs. And the Arabs brought with them sugar. They brought sugarcane, they brought citrus, all these different kinds of flavors. And Arabs kind of figured out how to do all of the irrigation to make those things grow. So Sicily historically has had sugar. If you go to a bakery in Tuscany and you get cookies in Tuscany, are they going to be sweet? I mean, I think probably for you, desserts are not the highlight of Italy. Would that be correct?
Yeah,
I'll
I
agree
like
with
the
that comment.
pasta. I like the pasta.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's okay to admit that, because most people would say if you're in northern Italy, the desserts are not really the attraction. There's only a few that really you see. You're going to kind of see them over and over again. You're going to see panna cotta, you're going to see tiramisu. There's not a lot of variety, and most of them are not particularly sweet. When we compare, let's say, to France, where they're going to have cakes and they're going to have eclairs, and the desserts are ridiculous. They just don't have that culinary tradition in mainland. But because Sicily is where they had citrus, they had almonds, they had sugar, which the rest of the island didn't have, or the peninsula didn't have, that means that they made the best sweets. So you have to leave room for sweets in Sicily. And when I say sweets, please do bring your toothbrush with you because it's like so sweet.
My
But what they
dentist will not be happy.
no, your dentist will not be happy. No. So it's what they really focus on are pastries and sweets made with sweetened ricotta, which is the sheep's milk cheese usually, and almond paste. So marzipan is usually involved. And then of course cannoli is the famous one. So that's the fried pastry dough in a tube and they fill that with sweetened ricotta. That's usually a sheep's milk ricotta and has chocolate chips. It might have some orange zest in it. That's kind of the classic one, but there are so many more than that. There's lots of almond-based pastries that are really, really fantastic. And then there's the one that I think are really cute, which are in Catania. They're little boobs. They're literally called little boobs. And they're these tiny little, they look like a boob with a cherry on top. And what that is a cake. I know you're laughing, but it's true. They have all kinds of names. One of my favorite cookies from Sicily, the name is Lingua della Suocera. That means mother-in-law's tongue. And it's a
Oh my
cookie that
God.
has sour
I
jam
don't know
on
if I
it.
want to try that one.
Cookie with sour jam. I love that.
So these cookies have the funniest names. There's another cookie that's very famous that's called Le Tette delle Monache, which is the nun's tits. So, you can
Very
see where I'm
clever
going with this.
names.
I
I
want
don't
to
know if
get
I
just
can
for the
order
cookies
those.
now.
I'll start to giggle like a child.
Well, I would laugh immediately. I'm like mentally 12. So
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, so the moral of the story is always save room for dessert because Sicilian desserts are really in a class of their own, and I don't think there's any place else in Italy that can do sweets the way they can. And a hot tip for you: do not take a cannolo that is full. If it's already filled with cream, do not take that one. You want to get one from a bakery that fills them in the moment because that shell needs to stay crisp. And if you put wet ricotta in there, it's going to get all soggy. So you want to make sure that the good one is somebody who fills it up when you order it and dips it in chocolate chips and hands it right to you.
Oh my
that's a
gosh,
good
that
tip.
all sounds amazing. So definitely you're saying pack those stretchy pants.
Absolutely.
So talking about packing, what are the biggest mistakes that travelers make when packing for Sicily, especially during the summer months?
Well, for sure, I think that people pack too much. You don't need to bring very much. I'm always advocate for taking 15 pounds if you can. If you watch my packing videos on YouTube, you'll see that I talk a lot about weighing stuff, where it's not about the quantity of things you bring, but the weight. And Sicily is particularly important for that because you're going to be carrying bags up hills. You're going to be schlepping things on and off of trains, most likely, or buses. So it's really important that you pack really light. The number one rule, and as I always say, nobody ever said that I wish I had packed more. Most people would never, ever, ever say that. And things that you are worried about not having, you can always buy in Sicily. There are pharmacies where you can buy shampoo and deodorant and toothpaste. And there are clothing stores where you can buy things that you might have forgotten. So that's not a problem. In fact, there's a huge mall in Catania. You can go and get a new iPhone if you need to. So you're going to be fine. So that's kind of number one. Don't take everything you own. Try to keep it to one bag. Try to keep it to 15 pounds if you can. Summertime is really, really hot in Sicily. So it's really important to be sure that you're kind of accounting for that. I don't tend to wear scantily clad kind of stuff. The thing is, Italians do tend to dress a little bit more formally than Americans do. And shorts are not super popular unless you're at a seaside resort, for example. So for me, I really prefer to kind of bring super lightweight things like super lightweight linen pants are great, lightweight linen shirts. And I really suggest that versus a tank top or shorts also because the sun is scorching in Sicily and you'll get burnt real fast if you're not used to it. So it's kind of better to have a strategy of wearing like lightweight linen and cotton, things that are very cool. I love dresses. I will wear all the dresses when I'm in Sicily because it's like natural air conditioning, right? So you got to stay cool and be really careful of the sun because in the summer it can get so hot. The hottest place in Europe actually is Syracuse. It can get to be over 110 degrees. They're up to 115 sometimes. So yeah, so you really have to think about that if you're heading to the southeast corner of Sicily, that really, packing super lightweight stuff in the summer is important.
Yeah, definitely. Like when we went to Crete in the summer, I was all about the linen dresses. Like I had like a million linen dresses that I brought with me and it was really useful. Like I cannot imagine wearing anything with like dark colors. Like I wore like a lot of white and it was very like flowy and just comfortable and cool. And then like I actually liked buying my sunscreen over there because they sold these amazing European sunscreens that we can't get in the United States. And I was so proud because I did not get burnt at all. Like I just looked a little tan and I'm really like for for anyone who could see the video version, really, really fair. Like, I think about the sun and get burned. I didn't get burned once in Crete because of those European sunscreens. So that's something else that you could buy when you're actually over there and not have to necessarily like buy from the United States and bring with you. I don't know. There's just something about European sunscreens. They're a little different.
Well, you're going to appreciate this because I went into a pharmacy in Palermo because that's often where you need to buy your sunscreen. You can buy it at the grocery store sometimes, but the pharmacy with the big green cross has most of the selection. And I went to the pharmacist and she asked if she could help me. And I said, "Oh, no, I'm just looking for some sunscreen." And she looked at me and I had picked up SPF 15 because I naturally tan. I'm very brown. And I know, like, you can't see me for it's a podcast, but I have very tan skin and I get tan super, super easily. And the woman looks at me and she goes, "Oh, no, signora, no, not with your coloring. No, you're too fair." And at the time, I was super brown. I was super tan. But because I'm a white girl with blue eyes and blonde hair, she's like, "No, no, no, signora." And she handed me like a SPF 50, I think it was.
PF50 on my face indoors. Like, I'm like crazy.
Yeah, I do not play with the sun. I mean, I'm from the Caribbean. I was born in Dominican Republic. So you think I would be a little bit used to being out in the sun, but same, like I'm the type of person you'll see me like under an umbrella. I have like my hat on if I'm on the beach because I actually do get burned very easily too. So I do not play around and also making sure to stay hydrated. And I know for myself, from my experience, I know when we went to like Positano, there were a lot of like the hills that we're walking. So wearing like comfortable shoes. So this is not the time to like break out those stilettos. Like, forget what you see on the White Lotus. Like, leave the stilettos at home. Bring those comfy
Absolutely agree
shoes.
with that. I think that the shoes are the one thing I talk about the most in like my blogs and things because it's the one thing that people really insist to get right because it can ruin your trip. And I wear a size of shoe I can't really buy outside of the US. I wear a 12 and it's very hard because I'm 6'2", so you don't really get a lot of choices. So shoes are super duper important. I really advocate, especially in the summertime, if you're going to go to get like a sports sandal, even though you're going to look immediately like an American, you know what? Everybody knows you're an American already. It's okay. Wear the shoes that are comfortable, that are, things you can wear in the water. And that's a really important point is that we expect beaches there in Italy are going to be like on the White Lotus or in Los Angeles or Hawaii. They're going to have this nice pillowy white sand. And then they get to Taormina and they go down to Isola Bella, which that's not where they filmed the White Lotus, by the way. They wanted that sandy beach. So they went to Cefalù on the other side of the island because that's the only nice sandy beach. It's all rocks. It's all little pebbles. So you really, if you're going to take a vacation to Italy in the summertime, no matter where you are, unless you're going to the Adriatic side, you have to bring water shoes because it's just not hospitable on your feet and it's really sharp. So please do be sure to bring sandals that you can wear into the water and then you can just swim with them on. There's also a lot of sea urchins and things like that if you're going to be in the water. That's really, really important. One other tip about the beaches if you're going to be there is that in Italy, you can, but it's not normal to take your beach towel and go spread it out on the beach and lay down. You can, but you have to find the public beach. Some of the beaches have been leased out to like a company that then puts out their sun chairs. And I think this is a great place to splash out and buy the sun chair. The sun chairs are usually 20 euros a day, maybe 30 euros a day. Might come with a drink, might come with lunch. You have to kind of ask around. But that is so useful, particularly on the east side of the island, because there are no good beaches on the east side of Sicily. They're all rocky. And so you really want to have a nice lounge chair to sit on, because otherwise you're sitting on rocks on the ground, which is not nice. Even in Cefalù, which has a very, very nice beach, I still splash out and I buy the loungy chair because it's just part of the culture. They usually will have a waiter come by and offer to get you a spritz or something, and I'm all for that. So I think that
Like,
getting a
sign
beach
me
chair is
up.
great. Yeah,
I know we
exactly.
did
I
that
mean,
when
it's
we went to Positano and like they brought us ice cream at one point. There was a guy that came around and he was cleaning my sunglasses. And I was like, all right, I splurged 25 euros a person for a bed and I get, my sunglasses cleaned for free. So it was definitely a nice little treat.
Yeah, why not? And I also like, because I go to the shore a lot here in New Jersey, I like not having to lug all my crap with me. Like, I like going up and there's an umbrella and a chair already there. Like, I will pay for that here. I hate carrying all that stuff. I hate it. So it's nice just to have it right there. You pay the money. And it was the same thing in Crete. Like, we rented a cabana and they came by with like the drinks and the food, and it was really, really nice.
It is nice, and I hear a lot of people who've never really traveled in Europe very much complaining about that, like it's a scam, and it's not. And there is a free beach. If you want to find the free beach, you just have to ask where it is. But the thing is, it's really culturally appropriate to do that because that's what people go to the beach for. They go to pay for that bed. One hot tip, though, is your hotel may have a discount because a lot of them have relationships with these different places. So either they may have passes for you to go for free if you go to a certain one, or they may have a discount. So that's a really good way to make sure that you get a chair at a good price.
Yeah, that's definitely a good tip. So, Sarah, as someone who has guided tours for over 25 years, what's one travel tip that instantly makes a trip to Italy smoother and more enjoyable?
Well, packing light is the number one. There's no doubt about that. And don't bring so much. I mean, I think that Instagram leads us to believe we need to have a new outfit every day. Just remember, nobody in Italy knows you. They've never seen you. And if you wear the same outfit for every single day, nobody will be any the wiser except for your photographs. That's the only thing that's going to know. So I think it's really important to kind of just buckle down, try to really lighten up your load. It's going to make your whole trip so much more easy, especially if you're getting on and off of trains, for example. And do not check your bag on the way over if you can avoid it, because that's also a big problem that I've had with guests is that, maybe 10% of the time a bag gets lost. But sometimes I've had people that never got their stuff or they got it the very last day of
Oh
a trip.
no.
Yeah, and the
It's
thing
like,
is maybe
no.
the odds might be 1% chance. It might be very little. If you are in that 1%, that's going to really kind of make it a bummer for you to try to get your bag back. So it's really not worth it. Just absolutely pack less. And the other thing I love to say when you go to Sicily in particular is pack less than you think you need because there are lots of really cute shops. There are so many independent artists who work in Palermo. There's a group called, I think it's Ballarm, and they have all these little handmade shops with jewelry and cute clothes and things like this. You're definitely going to want to shop while you're there. So just kind of take one outfit less than you think you're actually going to need, and then you can pick something up that is Sicilian. And that's a nice memory, a little memento of your trip.
I
I
love that.
definitely agree. And what you said too earlier about the weight too. I know when I travel by myself, I'm petite. So it's funny because whenever I'm packing, I always make sure that I can put my luggage like above my head. So I
Yeah.
can like put it on the overhead compartment because I am carry on all the way. And I don't want to be lugging like a luggage, if I'm going on the train or like I'm walking on the streets. So it's definitely a great tip, especially if you're traveling during the summer months. You're already dealing with the heat. The last thing you want, it's a heavy luggage. However, when my husband comes along, then I'm just like passenger princess and let him do all the heavy lifting. Put him
That's
to
a
work
really good tip.
sometimes.
No, that's a really good tip, and I've actually told a lot of people that as well because people will say, how many pounds can I bring on a trip?" And the answer is it's up to you, but I truly believe that it needs to be the weight that you can comfortably pick up and lift over your head. So you should pre-pack your bag maybe a week ahead of time, lift it over your head, see if you can do that without any problem. And what I like to do is pack it a week ahead of time and then revisit it maybe once or twice and take something out. You're not revisiting it to add stuff, you're revisiting to take stuff out because you want to have as little as you possibly can. You can easily get away with two pairs of pants, maybe a skirt, maybe a pair of capri pants or something, and a dress, and maybe three or four or five tops, something like that. That's plenty of clothes. You really don't need more than that.
I really need to practice packing. I used to be so good at like packing in one bag, but recently I've been terrible. So I think I'm going to try that with my summer trip to Italy, just like pack ahead of time and then take stuff out. Because, like you said, I also love to shop when I'm over there. I always love buying like a new outfit or like a cool piece of art or something. And when my bag's like stuffed to the brim with clothes, there's really like not a lot of room for that. And then I end up checking a bag on the way home and then having like multiple bags that I have to fit into one carry on. And it's always like a complete mess. But something that I'm curious about, just because it was mentioned a couple times, Sarah, when it comes to like independent travel in Sicily, are trains and buses the best way to get around the island, or is it preferable to rent a car? Because whenever I've researched a trip with going to Sicily, I've heard kind of conflicting things about it.
So that's a great question. Those of you who would like to travel by public transportation, it can be done. Is it easy? No, it's not. And there's a really simple reason it's not. The train system does not serve in a continuous loop the whole island. There's a lot of historical reasons I could explain to you, and I don't really think that that's what this talk is for, but they only have a train that runs along the East Coast, one that runs along the North Coast that connects to Palermo, but it really stops at Palermo. There's another train line, it just runs down the coast of Marsala. peninsula. So it's not connected. So this is a problem that you really don't have easy access to the trains. You can take buses. The problem with the buses is the buses are all separate independent companies that do not talk to each other. So there's not like one bus schedule. If you go in Catania to the bus area, there's going to be 6 or 7 different kiosks, and every bus company holds a different route. Again, historical reasons for this. We don't need to go into that, but that makes it very confusing. And also it's important to point out that in Sicily, not as many people speak English fluently as they do in the north. And I know Sicilians will kind of get in your face and say that's not true, but it is true. They don't speak English as frequently and fluently as people in the north do, particularly because tourism in its current form is kind of new. I mean, it's really only been in the last 10 years that there's been a ton of tourism. So that is a problem. So this is all to say that independent travel by public means is possible, but you should, I think, change what you're doing. I think it's really great to stick to maybe doing Palermo and then the East Coast only. You can also reach Agrigento on the train. A car is a much, much better idea, but that again changes what you're doing, right? Because where are you parking? How are you getting there? The roads are fine. It's not the problem. The way people drive there can be a little unnerving because I love it. I just have to say I drive like a Sicilian, which is it's an aggressive form of driving, I have to admit. I think I've only seen like more challenging roads in Cairo, but it's not easy. So that's the problem, is that Sicily just doesn't have a great solution for that, which is why my tours are so popular, because people kind of give up and say, I think a tour is a better idea, because it really is not great if you're not used to it. It can be very intimidating. So I guess my recommendation if you rent a car is you're going to need to think outside of cities. Like, you don't want to take a car into Palermo. You really can't. You can fly into Palermo. You can have a good time in Palermo, go back to the airport, pick up a car, and then drive around and then drop it off at the Catania airport. That's my best recommendation. And do not drive into the cities at all. The only exception, I think, is Syracuse. Driving onto Ortigia is not a big deal, but they have these electronic leashes around cities now. It's called ZTL, Zona Traffico Limitato. So if you go through the ZTL, when it's enforced, you can get a huge fine. You can also, by the way, get fines for driving super fast. And in Sicily, everybody drives super fast. So why shouldn't you drive super fast? And then you get home and you've got a ticket because there was a camera somewhere. So there's just kind of a lot of variables that go into the driving that make it a lot of a challenge. And it can be a challenge for people. So, I mean, are you up to it? You have to be kind of an adventurous person. But I would just say the best way to go about it is to think about, if you're having a car, stay in rural places, stay at Agriturismos, stay on Mount Etna, stay in the West Coast. The West Coast is a great place for a car because it's much more rural and slow paced. And so kind of think about that. Where are you going to park the car every night? Because you certainly don't want to be staying in downtown Catania with the car. That's a really bad idea. So, you have to think your itinerary through a little bit. So both of them have their challenges, unfortunately. That's just a little bit of the problem of Sicily.
So it just sounds like it's a little bit more planning in order to kind of figure out for what locations and regions you really need to have a car, and just kind of like planning those like little nuggets accordingly.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, what are your priorities as well? So, I mean, I know that some people have flown into Catania, for example, or Taormina, and you use that as a base. There's a lot of companies that run from Taormina that do day trips. So you can do that. Like, instead, if you don't want to do a full tour, you can go and stay as a base in Taormina, and then you can take these package day trips to, Agrigento and the Villa del Casale, or to Syracuse. There's lots of options like that. So that's another way to try to get around it. But there's not really an easy answer to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, I've done that before in a place where I wouldn't want to drive. I've like based myself in a city for like a couple nights and then would book day tours out, like small group day tours. And it would be a lot of fun. I would meet people as a solo traveler, and it did cut down on some of the stress of renting a car for sure.
Yeah, so you could potentially do like a staycation where you just choose one city. Or, I would say the best solution if you're just going to be doing it without a car is to just do Palermo and the East Coast, do Taormina, Catania, and Syracuse, and kind of call it a day. That would probably be your best solution. So, yeah, it's tricky. It's a complicated island, but don't even get me started on the history. It's much more complicated than all that.
It sounds
I
like
feel
a
like we
part
need a
two
part two.
episode.
I was just thinking, I feel like we're going to need a part two to this. There's like a lot. We're like barely scratching the surface in this podcast episode, and we haven't even traveled there yet.
Well, consider that Sicily has more than 3,000 years of history. It's got more history than Rome. So this is your problem, is that you're actually talking about the centerpiece of the Mediterranean. Almost every civilization has passed through Sicily. You know, if you think about the Carthaginians, they had settlements there. You think about the Greeks, they had settlements there. So we're talking about a history that almost has nothing to do with Italy. So when I started to guide there, I already knew Italian history backwards and forwards, and I had to have a new education. I had to read so many books just to get caught up because it's completely different. The people of Sicily also are completely different from an ethnic kind of point of view. If you look at them, a lot of them look Arab, a lot of them look Greek. Some of them look like me. I have been mistaken for being Sicilian. I am a 6'2", blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman. I'm like half Irish and half Slovenian. I don't look anything like a Sicilian. But because the Normans, the Norman French, inhabited the island for a while, there are people down there who look like me. So this is what's really fascinating about it. And this is something we could talk about at length in a different kind of setting, because the history and the cultural development of the island make it so fascinating. It really is just such an interesting place. So many layers. And the reason I insist on talking about this is that too many people, when they talk about going to Sicily, what is the one thing that comes to your mind when you think of Sicily? Just in one word. Rosa, what's the one thing that comes to your mind?
I always think of the boot.
Okay. Rachel, what about you? What's the one thing you think of just when you think of Sicily?
I actually think of Mount Etna. I think volcano.
Oh, you guys are good, because most people say The Godfather. Most people say The Godfather. Yeah.
Father.
Most people think of the mafia.
I
Most people
remember
think
watching
of The
that.
Godfather. Yeah, I mean, and this is the problem, is that for me, as a historian, I get really frustrated when that's all that people think about or they want to talk about. And actually, on my tours, I'll usually say, okay, look, today's Mafia Day. We're going to talk about all the mafia questions. Ask me anything until 11 o'clock tonight, and then we're not going to talk about it the rest of the tour, because people can go down such a hole of being obsessed with this when that's a very tiny little blip in the history of an island that had 3,000 years of very complex history. So I really insist when people come that they spend some time learning about what they're looking at, because you can visit and go to the beach and have a great time and eat good food and leave there having a great trip for sure. But when you really start to scratch the surface on why it is the way it is, why is this different? Why do the people look different? Why is their culture different? And you find out that they've had 17 different dominations by different cultures, and they're one of the most multicultural, multi-ethnic places in all of the Mediterranean. Like, most people don't realize that. It's kind of like Venice. You know, I love taking people to Venice because Venice will blow your mind if you actually learn about it. It's not canals, it's not Casanova. It's a fascinating place that was the light of the Western world for several centuries. And Sicily is kind of the same way. It's a place that really has this incredible, ennobling history that a lot of people just they don't think to learn about, or maybe they just don't have the time. But once you learn about it, it makes it so much more interesting.
I definitely think it's important for people to know the history when they're traveling to a new destination because, like you said, it allows them to kind of have a little bit more of insight and perspective on the day to day lives of the people that are living there from a different perspective. Because, like you said, what we see on TV or some of the misconceptions that we hear is not necessarily the true identity of the people that live there.
Exactly. And that's kind of that's been my mission working in Sicily for all these years, is to really help people to change their point of view on Sicily and see it for the richness and the noble history it's had, rather than maybe just the things that have happened in the 20th century.
Yeah, that's really, really important. So, to piggyback off of that, what's one unforgettable moment from your travels in Sicily that perfectly captures the magic of the island?
I think that one of the most unforgettable moments in Sicily for me is I was at a hotel in Taormina, and this is quite a few years ago. And I was sitting on a terrace, and it was a hotel owned by the friend that I was with. So he and I were sitting there, we were watching the sunset and drinking, I think we were drinking Campari spritzes, and we both completely lost track of time. Completely lost track of time watching the sunset. And at the time, Etna was kind of burping up the little pumice stones, so a little bit of a cloud here. So it was kind of just such a beautiful evening, and it was so silent. And we just had such a wonderful conversation. And we both just completely got lost in the moment. And that really feels to me like the magic of Sicily. It's allowing yourself to get so transfixed by the island, by the spirit of the island, by the food that you're eating, or the drink you're drinking, or the person you're talking to, that everything else in the world just falls away, and there's only that moment. That's the only moment that there is. And it was just such a funny thing. And then I think his phone rang, and then we both kind of shut up, and it was like, oh, wait a second. Wait, time exists? So it's kind of one of these wonderful moments where it will always live in my head as just one of the most beautiful moments that I think I've experienced, just being so lost in the moment and enjoying such a beautiful place. And Sicily is just such a haunted, beautiful, lyrical kind of place. It's full of mythology and full of all kinds of story and beauty that you really can lose yourself there. I think if you allow it to speak to you, it will speak to you.
I
I'm
want to
so ready to
go.
book that trip. Like, I am
Rosa,
so
let's
ready.
go. Let's go right now.
I'm sold, Sarah.
I'm sure there's still seats on the flight. I think the direct flights start in May, so let's just go tomorrow. We can put like an AI bot like here in New Jersey to take care of
Call out
business.
sick from work.
Well, hey, I have a tour that I'm doing in June, so you guys can come. I'm going to the Aeolian Islands with our Aeolian Islands tour. After that, we can read Homer. We can talk about Sicilian philosophy. So many great authors have come from Sicily. So there's just so many things to explore. So many dimensions. There's wonderful music, food, art. Sicily has everything.
Oh my God, we need a part two. You're like speaking to my literature loving heart right now.
All right, Sarah, are you ready for some fun rapid fire questions?
Sure, go for it.
All right. Would you rather get lost exploring the back streets of Palermo or spend a day sailing around the Sicilian coast?
Oh, sailing, 100%.
I agree. That sounds fun.
Yeah, the pasta on the boat just sounded amazing. I'm still like thinking about that. That is something I need to do in my life.
You do. And also the open water swimming is amazing. There's actually a place in the Aeolian Islands when you jump in that it's like swimming in champagne because there's a volcanic fissure in the seabed. So
Oh my
very
God,
cool.
that's so cool.
Sounds
I
awesome.
got to do all of this. Okay, so would you rather pack only a carry on for a month in Italy or have unlimited luggage but only wear linen the entire trip?
Oh gosh, see, if my light packing proselytizing self says, of course, lightweight, just taking one bag, but an unlimited linen collection, that's very compelling,
I
actually. I
would
love
love that.
linen
I
clothing.
mean, as someone who's kind of stuck traveling in Europe in summer because I teach, like linen is it for me. Like I would die for an unlimited linen collection.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take the unlimited linen collection, even though that's completely out of character with my like whole packing ninja, philosophy. So yeah.
Now I gotta watch your videos because I need to like perfect my packing skills. Because although I am team carry on, I tend to overpack.
Oh, I'm
So I
terrible.
do the opposite of your process. I usually pack last minute, and when I revisit my luggage, I add things, not take things out. So
Well, and just the keys, the cornerstone of my entire packing philosophy and what makes what I do a little different than anybody else is I weigh things, even my underpants. And I write the weight in every single thing, every shirt, every pair of pants, every dress. So when I go to select things with a Sharpie, I've already written the weight on the tag. So you can take as much as you want. You just have to stick to your weight limit.
that's a good strategy. I'm
That's
definitely
smart.
gonna try that for my next trip. All right, Sarah, would you rather spend a week eating your way through Sicilian street markets or taking cookie classes in tiny Italian villages?
Would definitely want to do cooking classes because I love that. I'm actually working with a company here in Seattle to do culinary tours for cooking schools right now. And I'm going to have to actually go and do research soon to do that, to put together these private tours. So, yeah, I love doing cooking classes. I think it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great places in Sicily to cook.
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And if you need a research assistant, Rachel and I can volunteer.
Okay.
Yes, we're always available.
Just a shameless plug in there.
Shameless plug. Yeah, I definitely need to do a cooking class. Maybe I'll do one in Puglia when I go this summer. I have not done one overseas yet, and I think it's time.
I've
Oh,
done a few and they're a ton of fun, especially because you get to meet locals, learn a little bit more of like the history. We did one when we went to Greece and we went to like this bio farm in Naflio. So we met with the owners. He went through the production process because they make like their own oranges and like olive oil. And it was such a fun time to experience. And it's funny because like his wife didn't speak really good English. So just like getting to talk to her, like, and she was speaking to us in Greek and we're speaking English. It was just such a fun experience. So highly recommend it.
yeah, that sounds amazing. Before we close out, Sarah, where can our listeners find you if they want more information about Sicily?
So you can go to my website, which is adventureswithsarah.net, and we have tons of blogs and information. My YouTube, it's Adventures with Sarah on YouTube. You can just Google that, and I have a whole section on Sicilian adventures, lots of different kinds of adventures and explainers as well. And then I do also have a Substack. It's Adventures with Sarah Substack, and I write about Sicily pretty often on Substack.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I know Rosa and I are ready to board a plane, and I do definitely feel like there's a part two coming because there's just so much to talk about with Sicily. So that's a wrap, guys, on today's episode of Bon Voyage Besties. We really hope this conversation inspired you to add Sicily to your travel bucket list. I know it's been on my bucket list for a while, and I'll probably be looking at those flights again because why not? So, from stunning seaside towns and incredible food to hidden gems and smart packing tips, Sarah shared so many amazing insights that will make traveling through Sicily even more unforgettable. And yeah, huge thank you to Sarah, founder of Adventures with Sarah, for joining us and sharing her expertise, stories, and love for Sicily. So, if you're dreaming about exploring Italy beyond the local tourist spots and want to take a trip down to Sicily, definitely check out her tours and resources. I know that I will. And of course, thank you, besties, for tuning in. You make this podcast possible. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review. And we also have a Bon Voyage Besties Substack that Rosa has been taking care of, and she's been doing such an amazing job. So please go and support that as well. And follow along for more travel information. So until next time, keep traveling, keep dreaming, and remember your next adventure is only a plane ticket away. So go check out those flights to Sicily. Like I said, the money will come back. Right, right. So, ciao, besties. We'll see you in the next one.
Ciao. Thank you, Sarah.
Ciao, grazie mille.